till the end of June. There is some notion from some folks, why do we start so late? It's actually the other way around. If you're getting ready, most of you are November people, but some are October, some are September. The September folks, they need to get started. But November, there's a tendency you can peak too soon, you can burn yourself out. So that's why we sway to late June. If everybody was doing in early September, then we would have started much earlier with the group runs. But what we're trying to avoid is people getting to early mid-October, and we had this problem years ago, and old coaches can learn new tricks. I said we better start this a little later in the summer, so that's why we start in late June. But in the meantime, you can do some runs together, get to know people a little bit, and maybe start working on some of the things that I preach pretty heavily. And like I said in the meeting a couple weeks ago, one of the number one issues going on with American long-distance runners, marathon, half marathon right now, is people do not get enough of the base in. I think most marathoners today, great percentage, their base is woefully shy as they go into their fine-tuning period. So we have these base building charts online. They're there for a reason. You got beginner, you have experience, and then you have advanced, or in the case of the marathon, we call it BQ, people shooting for the Boston qualifying time. Regardless of who you are, you want to get your base mileage up. The ultimate goal for a coach is to have your mileage climb until about 8 to 10 weeks out from the marathon or half marathon, and it doesn't change at all your overall weekly mileage during that fine-tuning phase. And fine-tuning is just that. This is where you're working on your tempo runs, and I call them tempo progression because that term has gotten kind of a loose meaning over the years. So meaning tempo is kind of at pace. I don't believe in that. I want you to go faster than pace in those shorter progression runs. Then you have your actual race pace runs, and then some of you will be doing track workouts. You shouldn't be doing any of that stuff really until your mileage has stopped climbing. So let's use a marathoner. You should be getting up to a minimum of 40 to 45 miles a week if you're semi-serious about running a marathon at a time that you're going to be pleased with and not getting hurt. You get in that 30 to 35 range and that's all you get, you're going to get what you deserve on that. And I don't mean you deserve to be punished, but that's the amount of work you put in, the results are going to be pretty disappointing to you. You're going to struggle most likely, you're going to have trouble on race day, and you could end up getting hurt, and you probably won't hit your goal. The distance is too far, 26 miles, to call 30 to 35 miles a week adequate. Now the half marathon, different. If you can get up to 25, 30, even 35 miles a week, you're doing great. And the adage, there's all these little kind of golden poor man's rules. With marathoning and half marathon, you want to double the distance of the race, should be your weekly mileage. So somebody's shooting for a kind of an edgy goal in the marathon, they're doing 50 miles a week. And somebody's shooting for an edgy goal in half marathon, and what's an edgy goal? It's something that you think is a little bit of a reach. Finishing, I'm sorry, is not a reach. And for a lot of people say, oh no, it's my dream to finish a marathon. You're going to finish the marathon. If you run it smart, you'll be able to finish it. The question is how fast you want to do it. And if you come up with a goal of sorts, that's called an edgy goal, meaning it's something towards the edge of your fitness. Great. You've got to get the mileage in. So double distance, obviously, with a half would be 25 to 30. It doesn't happen overnight. You want to climb gradually. You want to let your long run climb gradually. But by the time a marathoner, so the Boston group I coach, which is a lot of them are graduates of this program, they come to me after the summer and say, hey, I ran a Boston qualifying time. Can I train with the Boston group in the wintertime? I said, sure, if I've had a good experience with you and you haven't driven me crazy, then it's great. And anyway, getting to those guys, they're pretty much required because their demands on me are so high. And I don't mean demands on my time, but they're in their 50s and they want to run. I have a woman, she's 61, she wants to run under 340. I mean, and she can do it, but she's going to have to work to get there. In fact, I would argue the older you are and the higher your goal is, the harder you have to work. So they have to get to 50 miles before we start the fine-tuning. And they should have been at it for a few weeks, 4 or 5 weeks. The deeper you can dig that foundation, the greater the chance of two things happening. One, you're successful at your goal, and two, you don't get injured. Now that's a riddle. You would think it'd be the other way around. That getting up that kind of mileage, boy, you can get yourself in big trouble. And I use the house analogy all the time. So often, new homeowners especially if they're building their own home, they're so anxious with the builder. Why aren't you moving faster? That hole has been in the ground for a while. You just poured cement in. When are you going to put the cinder block up? When are you going to build the structure itself? When are you going to put the 2x4s up? And a good builder is going to wait for that to be solid. Most marathoners in this country today rush in, and that's where they end up either getting hurt or they end up failing at their time, or they just don't have a good experience on race day. So here we are, early June. You guys, how many of you guys are doing November? So about half the group. How many October? And any September? You don't know.
I don't even know what I'm doing yet. So.
Attaboy. It's good. You can do Leah's little flatland. How many said September? 1, 2. Good. Okay. So the September folks, a little more anxious for me right now because your 8 to 9 week kind of countdown is going to start in early to mid-July. Tick, 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 tick. So right now, you want to be working relatively aggressively on getting your mileage up so that you can get that line in the sand, the first part of the 8 to 9 week countdown, you're at that 40, 45, or 50 miles. And so actually, you really should have done your 20 miler, your first 20 miler should occur at the end of your base building. You go, oh my gosh, how can I get to 20 miles 8 weeks out? Well, you're supposed to do 4 is kind of the standard, 3 is getting kind of shaky, 2, you're not getting all your homework done, and 1, you are not getting all your studying done for the test. You'll finish the marathon, but it probably is going to be a bit of a struggle. During this base building phase, you want to get your aerobic heart rate in check. And this is a fun time as far as relaxation goes because just go out and run. Just go run. Don't worry, don't get yourself too anchored down or uptight about the Garmin or your watch. Just go out and listen to your breathing. Remember, down here it's obviously a little different, but in town, anywhere, this isn't reality down here, let's face it. There are not too many places in America where you're going to run a marathon that's just flat. But in town, remember, uphill, flat, and downhill, your breathing should always be the same. What's that called? Perceived effort, perception of effort. Your effort should always stay the same. Your pace will obviously change. So when I'm running, especially when I'm with a group, I like for that breathing to stay the same. When I'm alone, I'm really big time in control of it. When with a group, you can only imagine me, I'm pretty assertive. I'll say, hey, come on, let's be kind to the old man here. Let's slow it up. Do you not hear me laboring? And I always joke. I said, I know you want me to shut up. This is not a nice way to get me to do that. I'm joking with him, of course, because I'm going, I can barely spit out my words. That is a real, if you guys, this is kind of the zen of running. And this is how we used to do it in the old days. All the great runners, not me, but all the great runners did this. Miss Pursuit, Joan Benoit, my all-time favorite, Joan Samuelson. If you don't know who she is, Google her tonight. Greatest single influence, female influence on the sport ever in the history of this country. She made it to every single Olympic trial in the marathon, starting with the 84 one, up until last year was the only time she missed. Because you're getting in her mid to late 50s, getting harder and harder to run 2 hours and 49 minutes. So 84, 88, 92, 96, 2000, 2004, 2008. So 7 Olympic trials she made. All of those people back in the 80s, no Garmin's, no heart rate monitors, a lot of them didn't have watches. They ran on perceived effort. And I forget, I'm missing my points here, what I was going to say. So I lost it. Your house, running. It was going to be a good point, George. This is kind of the summation of it. When you're laboring, so if you're going, your mechanics are off. You don't realize it, but you are struggling. So everything gets out of whack. So if somebody was filming you when your breathing is nice and even, and you're at that 1 breath for every 6 to 8 steps, your mechanics are very fluid and efficient. When you get breathing heavier like that, I almost see it. This is terrible to pick on someone, but I can't hear it. Well, see, she stopped. So that's smart of it. It's smart. She looked to me like her mechanics were starting to come apart. Now, when your mechanics come apart, and listen, don't think I'm trying to make fun of someone. This has happened to me plenty of times. I've gotten smart over the years. You need to slow down so your mechanics get efficient again. Because what happens when your mechanics are off, you get injured. Most of the injuries we see in running are soft tissue related. Hip flexor, Achilles, calf, hamstring. Your calf can go like that if you are laboring, overstriding, you're hitting heavier, you don't realize it because you're trying to run. Mark told me I'm a 10-minute pace runner, and I got to hit 10 minutes. And you're ignoring things like environment, how much sleep you've had. So environment means how hot and humid it is, or the terrain. So I want you to enjoy this sport. And I said, well, Mark, but this is serious business. Doing a marathon, half marathon, yes, it's pretty serious business, but it doesn't mean you can't enjoy yourself along the way. There are going to be workouts where you're going to labor a little bit more, but most of your runs, especially the long runs, should be done nice and relaxed. Does everybody understand that? It's not a contest, it's not a game. You guys are going to find that at the beginning of the summer, your aerobic heart rate, you're comfortable, one breath every 6 to 8 steps is going to be different than it is at the end of the summer. I think just about anybody who's ever done this program before will tell you that at the beginning of the summer it might be 11 minutes and 45 seconds, and by the end of the summer it might be 10 minutes and 55 seconds. It improves that much. So over this first period of the summer, that's what you need to be doing. And as you get your programs in the mail, you're going to find that I've got things like hill repeats in there. I like to introduce a hill. Working on hills, surging up them, working on your mechanics and form is a form of weightlifting. It's a form of strength training. Works on your core. Good stuff. And I also might start introducing things like HMP and MP. What's MP? You guys, you veterans. Marathon pace. So I might start out by saying run 6 by a half mile in the middle of your run at marathon pace with a 1-minute jog in between. Oh my God, he's introducing speed already. Whoa. Where in any place on this earth is marathon pace considered speed? Marathon pace is actually kind of easy and slow. To put 26 of them back to back, that's a different story. But to run 6 by a half mile, if it's hard for you, you probably picked the wrong marathon pace. We do that more for practice rather than as a workout. And then we'll do things like 2 by 2, 3 by 2, 2 by 3, then suddenly you're doing 5 miles of marathon pace, then you're doing 10, and suddenly you're doing 12 miles of marathon pace, and it feels pretty comfortable. You kind of sneak it in so that marathon pace becomes your friend. Any questions?